All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling a really big question, one that affects everything from the companies we work for to the future of AI. How do we build intelligent systems that are not just smart, but actually safe and reliable? Systems we can truly count on. So think about it. When a system messes up, our first instinct is usually to blame someone, right? We point to bad intentions or maybe misaligned goals. But what if the problem is something deeper, something we're not even looking for? What if a system with the best of intentions can still end up causing complete chaos? Let's walk through a story that really hits this home. Okay, so picture this. A small foundation, they've got a chunk of money to give away as grants. A team gets together in a room to brainstorm. Right now, they're just in that creative, exploratory phase. Throwing ideas at the wall, talking about different applicants, weighing the pros and cons. They're just trying to figure out how to get the most bang for their buck. So as they're talking, a few of the applicants get flagged as, strong priorities. But it's all very casual, just part of the flow of the conversation. Afterwards, someone types up a quick summary and sends it around. Now, this is the crucial part. At no point does anyone say, okay, decision made, this is final. Yeah, but that's not how everyone else sees it. Further down the line, other teams get a hold of that summary, and they treat it like it's the final word. They start informally setting aside funds. Maybe someone even gives a few applicants a friendly heads up, hinting that good news is on the way. And just like that, expectations are set, all from what was just a brainstorming session. And boom, that's where the chaos kicks in, because when it turns out those funds were never actually guaranteed, trust is shattered. The organization is suddenly on the hook for promises it never officially made. See, the failure here had nothing to do with bad intentions. Nobody wanted the wrong thing. It was a complete breakdown of procedure. This whole story is just a perfect real-world example of something the source material calls mode confusion. And it sounds a bit technical, but trust me, it's a super subtle and really dangerous way for a system to fail. This really flips the script on how we diagnose problems. We are so quick to blame people, bad intentions, poor judgment, you name it. But the real culprit, it's often invisible. It's the lack of clear, hard boundaries between different types of work, and that leads to people taking actions they shouldn't. So, let's put a pin in it. Here's the official definition. Mode confusion is what happens when all the lines get blurry. It's when brainstorming accidentally bleeds into execution, when a casual chat gets mistaken for a final verdict. The system, whether it's people or code, literally doesn't know what mode it's supposed to be in. And that brings us to the core, the absolute central thesis of this whole idea. It's this. Instead of pouring all our energy into making sure a system wants the right things, maybe we should focus on building strict structural rules that constrain how it's allowed to act in the first place. Okay, great idea. But how do you actually do that? Well, the proposed solution is a framework called mode-bounded intelligence. And you can think of it as an architectural fix, a way to prevent this confusion by literally building clear, enforceable boundaries right into the DNA of the system. Now, it's super important to get this right. A mode isn't a person's job title, it's not a department, it's more like a setting for the entire system. It defines the rules of the game for a specific moment in time, like who has authority, what kind of promises can be made, and even how much failure is okay. So this framework breaks it all down into 5 distinct modes. You've got explore for brainstorming, operate for actually doing the work, adjudicate for when you need a referee, steward to keep an eye on the big picture, and architect for when you need to change the rules themselves. Let's just quickly touch on each one. First up, explore mode. This is the creative sandbox. It is all about discovery, generating wild ideas, running simulations. And the number one most important rule here is that nothing is binding. The outputs have zero authority. It is literally impossible to accidentally promise a grant when you're in explore mode. All right, next up is operate mode. This is where the rubber meets the road. Plans become actions. Commitments made here are real. They use up resources, they create actual obligations. And the critical thing is, the system can't just go off script. It can't decide to expand its own mission. It has to stay within its strictly defined mandate. Then you've got adjudicate mode. The easiest way to think about this one is like the system's judge. It only gets activated when there's a conflict or the rules are fuzzy on something. Its decisions are binding, and they can even set a precedent for the future, which is exactly why its power has to be kept on a very, very tight leash. The steward mode is kind of like the guardian of the system's long-term health. It doesn't get its hands dirty with day-to-day operations. Instead, it sits back and does periodic audits and reviews just to make sure everything is still fair and making sense. It's got oversight authority. It can raise a red flag, but it can't give commands. And finally, we have architect mode. This is the big one. It's the most powerful mode, and because of that, it's also the most restricted. This is the mode you enter when you need to change the fundamental rules of the system itself. It's deliberately insulated from the urgency of daily business to make absolutely sure that any changes to the system's core design are made slowly, deliberately, and with extreme care. Okay, so we have these 5 distinct modes, but just having them exist isn't enough, not by a long shot. The real magic and the secret to safety is in the discipline, the strict, unbreakable rules for how the system is allowed to transition from one mode to another. And this discipline really boils down to 4 basic rules. Rule number 1, transitions have to be explicit. You can't just accidentally drift from brainstorming into executing. Rule 2, ideas from the explore mode create 0 commitments. They have to be formally promoted to become real. Rule 3, the system can't give itself a promotion. It can't expand its own authority. And Rule 4, the adjudicate mode is for emergencies, not for everyday governance. The judge doesn't run the day-to-day. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds like a really solid blueprint for running a company or an organization. And it is. But the concept becomes absolutely critical when we start thinking about its implications for the future of, you guessed it, artificial intelligence. So here's why this is such a big deal. As AI systems get smarter and faster, we actually need more rigid procedures, not less. Why? Because there's simply no time for a human to step in and hit the brakes. And here's the really scary part. Even a perfectly aligned AI, one that genuinely wants to do good, could cause unbelievable harm if it suffers from mode confusion. If it mistakes a what-if scenario for a direct command, we're in big trouble. The ultimate goal, really, is to figure out how to let a system's intelligence and its capabilities grow, maybe even infinitely, without also letting its unchecked discretionary power grow along with it. This idea of mode bounding is a way to do that. It lets capabilities shoot for the stars while keeping raw power locked down by procedure. And that really leaves us with a final, pretty heavy question. As we race to build ever more powerful intelligence, are we also making it safer? Or are we just building systems with bigger and bigger blind spots? Systems that can make monumental mistakes at lightning speed, simply because they lack the basic structural discipline to tell the difference between a thought, an order, and a final judgment. It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me.